Hey, what's up guys? This is Blue Devil with Overclock.net. Today I'm going to bring you the View 27 by Thermaltake review. This is the first video that's coming out in a little over 2 years to the Overclock.net channel. I actually accepted the position of Overclock.net YouTube manager, so you're going to see a whole lot more of me on this channel. I hope that I can actually bring a good content and good job for you guys, but without further ado, let's take a look at the Thermaltake View 27. Alright, so let's get started here. So the Thermaltake View 27 features a Gull wing panel design. You basically have a top-down view of the internals of your case. So it's going to sport a lot of good looks in terms of your water cooling components and other things like that. So you can actually get a good view of your, bad play on words. Good view of your water cooling components and your actual components paid a lot of good money for. Officially speaking, Motherboard Support is rated for ATX, Micro ATX, and Mini ITX. I actually have thrown in a EATX in there, so I always want to test the boundaries a little bit. It is supported, but not really supported. You'll see right there, that basically the motherboard grommets are butting up against the motherboard itself, so it makes cable management a little tricky, but I managed to get around it. So it features 4 white ring fans from Thermaltake as well too, so kind of not normal to include 4 fans included in a case. It also has acrylic for the Gull wing, and then it has a smoked acrylic for the front panel as well too. It supports 4 3.5-inch drives. So one actually has a mount in the back in black, and then in the front it supports 3 120mm fan spots with an optional mounting for up to a 50mm radiator. So Thermaltake's own radiators will fit in there. They look quite nice in there, and then it also has a basement. In the basement, you can support up to 2 3.5-inch drives or 2 more 2.5-inch drives or SSDs, and then it has a little bit of cable management areas, tie downs, and things like that. I found cable management to be pretty good in this case. No grommets, which means that you can kind of see stuff. Would have liked to see some grommets in there, but it's not a pure requirement of cases anymore. But anything over $100, I'm expecting to see grommets. 3 shortcomings with this case. First, the acrylic panels in the front and the Gull wing design scratch relatively easy, so watch what you're wiping it off with. I was just using a terry fiber cloth, and it still scratched it. So to get it at the price point where it needs to be, I understand why acrylic was used. It would have been nice to have maybe a tempered glass option if one was able to come about. I know the curved design is a little bit harder to actually do with tempered glass, so with that in mind, I understand why acrylic was used. The second thing is going to be with the basement. It's a little cramped down there. I had a little difficulty fitting in my 850 watt G2 power supply by EVGA. It was just really cramped. I couldn't really get any cables in if I forgot to put something in. So in hindsight, put the cables in or plug them in first and then slide the power supply in. A little cumbersome if you want to add in like another SSD or another video card or another cable. You have to actually pull out the entire power supply. So in hindsight, I would make that drive cage a little bit movable maybe. You're starting to see more sliding rails. It wouldn't take much to actually do that as a manufacturing standpoint. So I'd like to see it a little bit movable for, you know, bigger power supplies or modular cables and things like that. So, and then thirdly was the actual paint itself. While most of the case is really well painted, I did find an area in the back near the back thumb screw was just kind of flaked right off. A little disappointed that the quality control wasn't a little bit higher in the paint, but I quickly remedied that by taping things off and repainting that off with just some white spray paint I had laying around. So it doesn't look horrible. You're never going to see the back anyway, but realistically I would expect a little bit better paint job so it wouldn't just flake off from the first installation. So what did this case do right for me? This case did a lot of things right. The cable management was decent, even though there's no grommets. I really didn't have an issue with that. Radiator support is really good. I can actually install a 360mm radiator. I do believe up to 50mm of thickness. I installed an old H220X by Swift-Tech in there with a just some green coolant just to kind of show off some of the green stuff in there. I have the NVIDIA GTX 1080. A nice case. It does fit EATX motherboards. However, you're gonna have a little bit of an issue with the cable management like I had thought in the beginning, but it does fit them. So cable management is pretty good. All the cables are in the right, or cable cutouts are in the right spots. And then I think the highlight of this whole build is going to be the Gull wing case design, and then as well as the 4 included ring plus LED fans. They're in white. They actually are pretty nice. I like the subtleness of them. It's not too much, it's not too little. Illuminates the case quite nicely. In all honesty, I wouldn't mind running them all the time, and they're really not bad fans to begin with. So they're a little, I would say, on the little louder side, but they're more, I think, optimized for like radiator support instead of case. But it's nice that Thermaltake included 4 actual fans, whereas normally you're going to see 2 at the max. So it's nice to see. I do really like the fact that it includes a vertical GPU mount. One kind of point is that doesn't include a riser cable. I know riser cables are being kind of a mixed bag right now. The one I'm using right now is by Easy DIY. It's not of great quality, but it still gets the job done. I know Thermaltake is coming out with newer riser cables that are immensely better quality than they were before, but also that offers a higher price tag. So I can see why they don't include that kind of thing. Obviously, it's not a requirement to run your video card in a vertical form factor. If you wanted to run it traditionally, you could, negating the need to have the riser card in the first place. If you do install your video card like I have here, you still have the ability to use, like for me, the first PCI 16 slot for any expansion cards, RAID cards, things like that. It's really nice, and then if I actually move down the riser card even more, I can use all those other things. So that's kind of nice. You don't have to sacrifice using all of your PCIe slots for just a vertical GPU. So that's kind of nice that it's moved up more towards the window. You get to see the GPU a little bit more that you paid so much money for. Support for 2.5-inch drives is pretty good. You see 3 spots for the 2.5-inch drives. You have also 2 3.5 drive cages here that can accept SSD mounts as well too. 2.5-inch drives need to apply as well. They're plastic. They're okay. Pretty much the golden standard in terms of drive sleds. They're not metal. I would have liked to see a little bit metal, but it does have a little bit of noise dampening here, rubber on it, so it doesn't vibrate if you're using a traditional hard drive into the case. But it's of good quality. I'm not going to complain about it too much. I mean, I like the metal ones, but it's not a huge deal. So 2 are included in there. And then the front ventilation is pretty good too. There is one little bit right here for a little cutout underneath, but mainly your ventilation is going to come through the side here. So the front USB panel, little disappointing noise seeing that USB 3.0 is pretty much a given now. I only see one USB 3.0. This motherboard I have only does USB 3.0, so I can't use these other 2 ports here. You get your front microphone, headphone jack, your LEDs for hard drive activity and power on, and then the reset switch over here, as well as the power switch. So nothing else going on the side here. Pretty plain in that respect. But the back I/O is pretty good too. You see the 1 ring fan shining through here, and then the vertical GPU mount. No removable PSU or ATX style PSU style bracket here, which would have been nice to see. And then there is no capacitive thumb screws. So again, that would have been a nicer thing to see as I was dropping them a lot. And then I wanted them all to match. So seeing a capacitive thumb screws would have been nice as well, but not a requirement. It does definitely get the job done. Underneath the case, you do get a power supply filter, which is a nice inclusion. Goes in and out pretty nicely. The downside is it's in the back. It's hard if you had it bumped up against a office setting or against a wall or something like that, where it's a little bit harder to actually get to. I know a lot of the Fractal Design stuff comes out from the front, so that would have been nice. And then in the front I/O, or the front fans, watch how I did this. You can see actually right here that the included mesh filter is actually on the other side of the fans. I think this is done purposely so that you can see the fans through the smoked acrylic panel a little bit easier. The downside is that you're going to have to take off the fans to clean the filter. So keep that in mind if you are looking at this case. It's not a bad case per se, but there are a few tweaks I would have done. But it's not a bad case per se for a Thermaltake case. I've had several Thermaltake cases in the past. They're not bad cases. They're more, I would say, aimed at the budget market, but it's not a bad design. Alright, so in closing, tell me what you think about this case. Do you like it? Do you like the snow white paint job? I actually kind of like the white myself. I've always been more of a black paint job kind of thing. It actually kind of pops for me. To do a black, green, and white build was kind of something a little bit different. Tell me in the comments below if you are interested in seeing a hardline loop being put in this bad boy. It's going to be kind of interesting. I've never really worked with this kind of case before, and I really think the Gull design is going to show off water cooling pretty well, as you can peer into the case and see all of its glory. So, with that said, toss me a like if you like this. Toss us a dislike if you disliked it. Go ahead and toss us a subscribe, as this is being the first Overclock.net upload in over 2 years.